Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte goët.
This is Justice Putnam. In the 2 weeks preceding Christmas of 1974, as a 19-year-old, not knowing any better, I hitchhiked across America from California to go to New York and meet some friends from college, whereupon I was to accompany them to their family's holiday gathering in Connecticut. I arrived in New York on Christmas Eve, and it was a rather chilly and bitter night, and I'd never been to New York before, and the result of that visit is the following poem that at one point became a song lyric that I performed quite frequently. This is called A Christmas Story, 1974. There is a crying, and it comes from behind this door, and the snows blow through this shattered skylight. I've been stumbling, taking steps with the stinking drunks. It is Christmas morning, and it is still dark. I have heard the sirens. People die on Christmas even. We have a tree, but nobody can show me where is God. Yesterday, a policeman's brain was smeared on the broken stained glass. I wonder what his kids got from Santa. And I watched an old black man. He had bled dead red in the snow. My God, that still happens, you know. Well, the lady upstairs had a baby, so they say. Born on the floor, the dogs and the rats were watching. Everybody said, what a healthy boy, but I sit down here and I wonder how. I think that she named him Jesus. Because there is a crying, and it comes from behind this door, and the snows blow through this shattered skylight. And I've been stumbling, taking steps with the stinking drunks. It is Christmas morning, still dark.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, we see, all is bright, young virgin mother and child.
people have been apologizing, and there's one particular person I think we all need an apology from. So since he hasn't done it, we decided to say it for him. Happy holidays!
Today I'm announcing that I'm sorry. I've been very mean to women. I feel terrible. And I feel so sad. So sad. I'm sorry for degrading women. I have not respected women. I am officially apologizing. I have hurt women and tried to bully and humiliate them, and it was wrong. Very, very wrong of me to do that. Personally, I am embarrassed and ashamed of myself, and I take full responsibility for my actions. And I apologize to my wife and to my daughters and to the women of this country. The truth is, I'm very, 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 very afraid of women. And I attack women because I'm scared of them. And I lie because the truth hurts. I'm not a good president, and any woman would do a better job than me. Now, in all fairness, Hillary should be president. I just wish Justin Trudeau liked me. That's why I'm totally insecure. Remember also, I have tiny hands. And I don't like being president. It's way, way too hard. My whole life I treated women not good. Honestly, it's a disgrace. I am going to stop it. I know that women are better than me, smarter than me, stronger than me, and they deserve more respect. I am not very good at stuff. I'm a baby. I am very, 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 very so sorry. But I will change to quote the brilliant feminist author Bell Hooks. Feminism is for everybody. Happy holidays. And don't worry about it. I'll probably be in jail very soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, a jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, a jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Now the ground is white, go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight and sing this sleighing song. Just a bit of bobtail bay, 240 as his speed. They and hitch him to an open sleigh and crack, you'll take the lead. Shibba-dabba-do-do-do-do, shobba-dabba-ba-do-do, she-do-do-do. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on one horse open sleigh. And jingle bells, and jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey! Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Crazy about horses.
That's an ongoing national security threat.
I need to share another quote from the piece, and Steve, I want you to talk about it on the other side. Without obvious parallel in U.S. history, a situation in which the personal insecurities of the president and his refusal to accept what even many in his own administration regard as objective reality have impaired the government's response to a national security threat. The repercussions radiate across the government.
It's an amazing story. Look, I've said before, as a general proposition, the male ego is a delicate flower. What this shows is that there is one flower more delicate than all the others. The insecurity, the thin skin.
You are comparing President Trump to a delicate flower.
A delicate flower. Such a sensitive ego. It's remarkable. He took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. This wasn't an attack on the Clinton campaign. An attack on the elections process is an attack on the sovereignty of the United States of America. The evidence and the intent is plain. And from a national security perspective, this is how foreign powers, some of them hostile, manipulate this president. Give him a nice red carpet, throw him a big parade, pat him on the head,
a dance
scratch
show.
him behind the ears, because nothing overwhelms this titanic ego, this supernova of narcissism. Not duty, not the country, not the security of her people. This is a remarkable story because it offers such insight to how his ego overwhelms his duty to protect and strengthen the country.
But then could one make the argument then his ego and his lack of response to clear evidence that there was Russian interference, doesn't that propel collusion beliefs? Doesn't that hurt his own son, Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner, who appear to be in the hot seat, or at the very least the crosshairs of the Robert Mueller investigation?
Well,
doesn't that make an argument that that pushed the appointment of this special prosecutor Robert Mueller?
I think there's a substantial lack of evidence to suggest there's room in his heart to care about anyone other than himself across this first year of the presidency. I don't think that's part of his calculation here. What we know is the ego on him is so powerful that it opens up a wormhole, if you will, into this alternate reality.
But it makes it worse for Don Jr. and Jared. The reason, when we get these denial after denial after denial for the president, that's why we believe, or people believe, there's more smoke.
There's 330 million of us in this country. It makes it worse for all of us. This was an attack on the election process of our democratic republic, and he has done nothing.
Yeah, and it does seem, Malcolm, that a lot of the sort of attempts to reach Donald Trump went through his son by Russia.
And yeah, you're right. And Donald Trump Jr. is another one of those people who's going to be a key node in this operation. We now have 3 email chains which are critical. The meeting of the lawyer, the Russian lawyer, Venetskaya, her name escapes me right now, and, you know, other information that have come out. Donald Trump Jr. was at the top of that chain. That means that Donald Trump trusted an immediate family member that was not Jared Kushner for these dirty tricks campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to get that dirty information on them.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, he is also going to be dragged into this. You know, when the FBI conducts these these family organization plots, they generally label these continuous criminal enterprises. And that's what we have here, is we have an interwoven series of family members and cronies who have created a criminal enterprise.
En cette nuit, une caresse du ciel. En cette nuit, l'enfant Dieu est né à Bethléem. Les tout petits, les premiers ont accouru. Les tout petits, les bergers l'ont reconnu. C'est Noël, c'est Noël. Joyeux Noël à tous les enfants de la terre. Joyeux Noël à tous les peuples du monde. Quand cette nuit vienne la paix de la colombe, cette nuit, les ténèbres sont vaincues. En cette nuit, une étoile est apparue. Joyeux Noël à tous les enfants de la terre. Joyeux Noël à tous les peuples du monde. En cette nuit vienne la paix de la colombe, la paix de Noël. Joyeux Noël à tous les enfants de la terre. Joyeux Noël à tous les peuples du monde. En cette nuit vienne la paix de la colombe, la paix de Noël. Joyeux Noël à tous les enfants de la terre. Joyeux Noël à tous les peuples du monde. Qu'en cette nuit vienne la paix de la colombe, la paix de
Robert Mueller is investigating Russia's attack on the American election. But now he is under attack. And this new assault is not coming from Moscow. It's coming from Fox News headquarters right here in New York. And it's coming from the White House. It's an anti-Mueller, anti-FBI feedback loop, claiming that Mueller's probe is hopelessly biased and downright corrupt. Let's cue Fox.
I think what we have here is potentially one of the biggest scandals in American history, where we're seeing, our justice system being used to really change the outcome of an election.
That's from Fox and Friends just today. Now let's cue Trump aide Kellyanne Conway last night.
The fix was in against Donald Trump from the beginning, and they were pro-Hillary.
This is the feedback loop in action. I want you to see it over and over again. Fox, Trump, his aides, GOP lawmakers, all of them, they're taking a legitimate issue, which is the discovery of a Mueller team member who expressed his hatred of Trump in text messages, and then they're blowing it up, trying to discredit the entire probe. Now remember, that team member was removed from the probe when the text messages were found. But every day it's something new, some new reason to claim the special counsel is illegitimate. So as you watch the coverage, try to notice how this works. Notice how right-wing commentators and GOP lawmakers are echoing each other. And pay close attention to the banners on the bottom of Fox's screen. Last night, I can't believe this. Fox is asking if the FBI is engaged in a coup. This morning, the banner said the investigators are in the hot seat. This isn't just an alternate reality. This is a reversal of reality. Obviously, it's Trump world that is on the hot seat. 4 Trump associates have been charged with crimes. 2 of the 4 have pled guilty. Mueller is investigating a massive fire, and everyone can see and smell the smoke. But this, instead, is what the president's hearing.
The only thing that remains is whether we have the fortitude to not just fire these people immediately, but to take them out in cuffs.
That is Jeanine Pirro, one of Trump's informal advisors, not just calling for firings, but arrests. Look, I don't say this lightly, but these FOTs, these friends of Trump, they're talking like propagandists. This sounds like propaganda, and it sounds dangerous. Pirro's demanding a cleansing of the FBI. Sean Hannity's calling Mueller the head of the snake. Other Fox hosts are calling the FBI corrupt and out of control. Rush Limbaugh is describing it as a coup. And guests on these programs are comparing the FBI to the KGB. The conservative media choir is telling Trump that Mueller is out to get you, trying to reverse the outcome of the election. It doesn't get any more dangerous than that.
We need to be introspective, and part of being introspective right now in this cold civil war is to look at where we are in this country in terms of the press being a crucial element of the cold civil war, and see if there are some ways that we, through more transparency, as well as perhaps change in tone in some instances, can make ourselves less the issue, the conduct of the press the issue, instead of the conduct of the president and those around him.
With the greatest respect to Carl and his incredible accomplishments, I really think framing this as a matter of two sides is fundamentally misleading. The press, the worst mistakes that, again, when we talk about the press, we exclude Fox. I mean, we talk about press organizations that have an interest in finding truth. Excluding Fox, the worst mistakes that press organizations have made in the coverage of Trump has precisely occurred in their overzealous effort to be fair to the president, because the problem they cover is accurate coverage of this president and his campaign is very different from neutral coverage of this president and his campaign. I mean, how do you fairly report the fact that the president lies all the time and that he recruits people to work for him who lie all the time? The worst mistakes, in my opinion,
I'm not talking about neutrality, David. I'm not talking about neutrality. You're absolutely right.
The worst mistakes that press organizations have made, include CNN made. I mean, Raju and his co-author, the mistake they made, it was important. They promptly corrected it. The worst mistakes CNN has made have been the result of the determination to bring in-house Trump associates in order to promote Trump falsehoods, not from Trump HQ or not from the White House, but with CNN's own brand on them. And
we'll have to disagree on that
occurred.
one. I think we need to hear from Trump supporters, but
you need to hear them, but you need to hear from them as Trump supporters. You don't need to put your own brand on them, and that has been the worst mistake. But that comes from the desire to be unduly fair.
What's Bannon's role in this party now?
Well, I hope it's being marginalized. The last thing we need is to push that, ultra nationalist, ethno-nationalist, protectionist kind of element of the party. That's not good for us.
So what's the risk if the party continues in that direction, the Bannon direction, the Trump direction, right, that you could lose? Could you lose the Senate? Could you lose the House?
Most definitely. When you look at some of the audiences cheering for Republicans sometimes, you look out there and you say, those are the spasms of a dying party. When you look at the lack of diversity sometimes. And it depends on where you are, obviously, but by and large, we're appealing to older white men, and they're just a limited number of them. And anger and resentment are not a governing philosophy. So you have to actually govern and do something. And sooner or later, the voters will figure out, I think they are and have, that we've got to have something else.
Matters most is what the kind of activist base feels about it. What do you think this does to that part of the equation?
Oh, I think this energizes the activist base like crazy, as, Adi Barkan, a national hero now, just told you. And I just got off a conference call with Virginia Democrats because they got a recount today. That means that they took the House back from Republicans. They won at least 16 seats. There's still another recount to go, Chris. And so we know the activist base is already incredibly energized. This will only do more. And I defer to David K. Johnston on all things tax related. Right. But I will say, I don't think Barack Obama got a lot of credit when people got some money back in their pockets. He didn't get any credit. Right. And people, unfortunately, I don't know that people are paying that much attention when their taxes just go down by a little. Something else might happen in their polling that they don't notice it. George W. Bush did the smartest thing in our political lifetimes, practically, by sending us a check. I got one, have my name on it.
the name on it.
I didn't like it.
George W. Bush
but
gave
I
you
sure
this
did
money.
Cash it, and they're not even doing that. Plus, they made several, bird rule mistakes that mean they have to vote again, which makes them look incredibly stupid. And I'm really hoping Democrats have found like 20 mistakes, and they'll only release 2 a day, so they have to keep voting every day.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This special day got me to thinking about America's spirit of giving. And I don't mean this overdone business of Christmas gifts. I mean our true spirit of giving. Giving of ourselves. Yes, we are a country of rugged individualists. Yet there's also a deep, community-minded streak in each of us. We're a people who believe in the notion that we're all in this together, that we can make our individual lives better by contributing to the common good. The establishment media pays little attention to grassroots generosity, focusing instead on the occasional showy donation by what it calls philanthropists, big tycoons who give a little piece of their billions to some university or museum in exchange for getting a building named after them. But in my mind, the real philanthropists are the millions of you ordinary folks who have precious little money to give, but consistently give of yourselves and do it without demanding that your name be engraved on a granite wall. My own daddy, rest his soul, was a fine example of this. With half a dozen other guys in Denison, Texas, he started the Little League Baseball program, volunteering to build the park, sponsor and coach the teams, run the squawking PA system, etc., etc. Even after I graduated from Little League, Daddy stayed working at it because his involvement was not merely for his kids, but for all. He felt the same way about being taxed to build a public library in town. I don't recall him ever going in that building, much less checking out a book, but he wanted it to be there for the community, and he was happy to pay his part. Not that he was a do-good liberal, for God's sake. Indeed, he called himself a conservative. This is Jim Hightower saying, my daddy didn't even know he had a political philosophy, but he did, and it's the best I've ever heard. He would often say to me, everybody does better when everybody does better. If only our national leaders in Washington and on Wall Street would begin practicing this true American philosophy.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with a selection of the day's top world news headlines. The United States is throwing a party. It's been labeled a friendship reception and will be held on January 3rd in New York. The guest list? To get an invite, you needed to either vote with the U.S., abstain, or sit out a UN resolution on Thursday that condemned President Trump's Jerusalem announcement. A total of 64 countries will get an invite. By contrast, 128 countries voted against the United States on Thursday. The U.S. has a new ambassador to the Vatican, Callista Gingrich, wife of the former Republican Speaker of the House and presidential hopeful Newt Gingrich. In a video message last month, Gingrich touted the things the U.S. and the Vatican had in common.
Defending human rights, advancing religious freedom, combating human trafficking, and seeking peaceful solutions to crises around the world.
But dig a little deeper and you'll find many more points of division. Pope Francis has strongly condemned the Trump administration's decision to back away from the Paris Agreement on climate change. He's also expressed misgivings about Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the Israeli capital, his refugee policies, and even questioned whether Trump was truly pro-life after announcing an end to the DACA protections for immigrant children in the United States. And voters in Spanish Catalonia have re-elected pro-independence lawmakers to lead their regional parliament, signaling that a high-stakes push to break away from Spain and form a new country could be far from over. The plan to hold new elections this week was devised by Spain's Prime Minister, Mariano Rajoy, who feuded bitterly with Catalan independence leaders and hoped new elections would see unionist parties seize control. Thursday's vote is a win for exiled Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont, who fled to Belgium after being threatened with arrest for organizing an October referendum that saw an overwhelming majority of voters back independence. Luke Vargas, The United Nations. All right. Well, thank you for accompanying us back to the chef's table here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I'm your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. And I should remind folks that on your menu, if you go to netrootsradio.com, that'll take you to our homepage. Scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you'll find the chat room link. That is one way to communicate with the station. And Roaring Girl takes care of that mostly. To the leftish of the chat room link are the donate and contribute buttons. That is how we are able to pay our bills. We cannot do that without you, and thank you for that. You can contact me, Justice Putnam, at Justice Putnam on Twitter, and also I am Justice Putnam on Daily Kos, so get a hold of me in either one of those places. Another reminder, I am working on getting podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy available, and it's probably going to be after the first of the year. I apologize. There'll be a little backlog for you to catch up with, but I've been having requests, and I'll be on it right away. So I apologize for the delay, and thank you for your patience.
Star of Bethlehem, shining afar through shadows dim, giving a light for those who long have gone, and guiding the wise men on their way unto the place where Jesus lay. Oh, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine. Until the glory dawn, give us the light to light the way unto the land of perfect day. Oh, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Star, the hope of life, guiding the pilgrims through the night, over the mountains till the break of dawn, into the light of perfect day. unto the land of perfect day. Oh, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Oh, beautiful star, the hope of rest for the redeemed, the good and blessed. Yonder in glory when the crown is won. For Jesus now, that star divine, brighter and brighter he will shine. Oh, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Oh, beautiful star, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine upon us until the glory dawn. Give us the light to light the way unto the land of perfect day. Oh, beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on.
Why are people afraid of getting to the bottom of it, Steve? Why are people afraid of having the Electoral College have more knowledge before they vote? If we have an Electoral College, it should be for things. They're not just supposed to be a rubber stamp. If they're a rubber stamp, then let's get rid of it. Let's just go to national popular vote, which a lot of us would support. But I want to take issue with something that Hugh said early on. Donald Trump did not merely say, "I just don't believe that the Russians intervened on my side." He said he doesn't believe it, plain and simple. It could be Russia, Hugh, it could be China, it could be somebody in their bed, hacking from their bed. I don't know where he gets these images from. They're kind of creepy. But he absolutely denied what his friends in the Republican Party and you yourself, Hugh, have been saying. He refuses to accept the reality that this is the consensus of the intelligence agencies.
Is there, Hugh, have you noticed in Donald Trump the way he's reacted to these revelations, to the news, at least from what the CIA is claiming right here? Does he seem too defensive? Does he seem too hostile to the apparent conclusions of the intelligence community?
No, I think he seems abrupt because it's silly. I think the whole thing is silly. What we faced here, Steve, and Joan knows this, is first an attempt to delegitimize the Trump election by saying it was Director Comey's fault. Secretary Clinton came out and blamed fake news last week. This week they're blaming the Russians, when we all should be recognizing and not being an election denier. It sounds like Joan's going into the election denier camp.
No, I'm not. I'm going into the camp of more information, Hugh. This is a really serious issue.
Donald Trump won. I agree with Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan that the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee need to get to the bottom of what the Russians did, if it was the Russians alone or through third-party actors, find out and then take reprisals, because none of this would have happened if the red line had not been erased, if North Korea, when they hacked Sony, had felt sanctions. The fact is, the weakness of the Obama years led to increasing number of cyber attacks on America, and now they're paying the piper, and it's not Donald Trump's fault that Secretary Clinton had a server in her basement. It's not Donald Trump's fault.
That's not the issue either.
Well, but in terms of this question of affecting do you believe this is what we have right now? If the intelligence community's conclusions are correct, and Russia was behind the leaked DNC emails this summer, then you had the Podesta emails that were sort of trickling out throughout the campaign.
They clearly hurt her.
Do you think that affected the election?
There's a cohort of Bernie Sanders people who absolutely believe falsely that the DNC rigged it for her. There are people who made a decision not to support her. They could make up that 70,000 in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. We'll never know. But I want to go to one other thing that's important here that we haven't mentioned yet: the role of Mitch McConnell. Because what Mitch McConnell is upset about today, I'm comments a little bit differently when he says no one can believe Republicans wouldn't want to get to the bottom of this. He was asked, the administration sent Jay Johnson, they sent James Comey and Lisa Monaco to brief a bipartisan group of congressional leadership in September and say, we would like to come out and we would like to make a bipartisan statement, not that they're on the side of Trump, but that Russians have hacked. We believe Russians were responsible for these hacks, and we also would like to come out and say we'd like to warn states and local officials to really secure their voting apparatus, because we know that they got into the databases. We know they got into the databases of 2 different states. Illinois was one of them. And Mitch McConnell shut them down. So that's the other thing that's at issue here. He's fine saying it now, and he's acting like, oh, the Russians aren't our friends. But when he had the chance to do something patriotic and bipartisan, he shut it down. And for whatever reason, the Obama administration went along with it.
Hugh, play this out a little bit. What does it mean? We've talked so much about what the mandate is that Donald Trump earned in the election, what that means in terms of sort of moral authority as president, these things that I guess are difficult to measure statistically. If these investigations, if we go down the road of having these investigations, and it is put out there as a matter of public record that the Russians did intervene, were behind these leaks, if that's something that can be conclusively demonstrated to people, what would that mean? Would that mean anything for Donald Trump in terms of his legitimacy, in terms of his moral authority as president?
No, Steve. I think what the left is trying to do, and Joan's very good at it, is to progressively delegitimize Donald Trump's presidency. He won, and fake news doesn't change it, and Director Comey doesn't change it, and the Russians don't change it.
Let's remember that.
And the popular vote also doesn't matter because the constitutional majority is the Electoral College. And next week, the Electoral College makes him president for final and for good. Now, what matters here is the attempt to slow down President-elect Trump's nomination of a Supreme Court justice, of 13 courts of appeal vacancies, of 90 other. Harry Reid gave to the Republicans, and he's trying to cover the fact that he made the greatest strategic blunder of the last 50 years by destroying the filibuster. So the Republicans get all of their nominees, they get their Supreme Court nominee, they get their appellate court nominee, because Harry Reid made a bad choice.
They don't
and
get
a lot of this is simply Harry Reid's attempt to cover up the fact that he blew his most important decision.
It's not just Harry Reid.
All right, well, that's when we get on to Supreme Court. That'll be a conversation for another day. I'm sure that one is coming down the pike. Hugh Hewitt, Joan Walsh.
And Lindsey Graham, to your point, not only has Lindsey Graham turned around from calling Trump a kook to being upset people are calling him a kook, to golfing with Donald Trump and even praising one of his golf courses, which I'm not even sure that doesn't violate some ethics rules. Trump International Golf Club is a spectacular golf course, great day of fun playing with POTUS. You wrote about Lindsey Graham explicitly. He is somebody who has admitted he was hacked by the Russians, who used to have strong opinions about Russiagate. There are innocent explanations for why he's doing it, careerism. What are the not so innocent explanations for why he's changed?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the explanation of, careerism, opportunism. That's a typical aspect of politics, and we shouldn't rule that out because that can go hand in hand with other explanations. But we do know that the RNC was hacked. We don't know what happened with those emails. We know that Lindsey Graham's personal emails were also hacked, and we know that Trump has a long track record of blackmailing and threatening who he sees as his political opponents. That goes back throughout his entire career, especially in terms of his lawyers, whether Roy Cohn in the 1980s or Michael Cohen during the election. And so I think it's possible that some of these GOP players, while they might be greedy and opportunistic, are also being blackmailed or threatened. There's also the issue, I think, of, contamination in the sense of the Russia investigation. We know that there are a number of shady donors, a lot of dirty money, some of it stemming from Russian oligarchs who donated to the GOP campaign, and that certain individuals may not want to be investigated, for their role in taking that kind of money. Lindsey Graham is one of those people, and I think a number in the GOP are worried about that. So that's an issue of great concern. But I think what concerns me most is that they seem afraid. They seem unable to stand up for themselves. They lack all dignity. Trump has berated them. He's insulted them. He's often gone after their wives and their family members, saying terrible things. They prostrate themselves to them. It's like, what kind of leader are you? What kind of man are you?
Virgin Mary had a baby boy. Virgin Mary had a baby boy. Virgin Mary had a baby boy. And they say that his name was Jesus. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come from the glory. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh, yes, believe us. Oh, yes, believe us. Oh, yes, believe us. He come from the glorious kingdom. Born in a town called Bethlehem. Born in a town called Bethlehem. Born in a town called Bethlehem. And they say that his name was Jesus. He come down. He come from the glory. He come down. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come down. He come from the glory. He come down. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh yes, believe us. Oh yes, believe us. Oh yes, believe us. He come from the glorious kingdom. Was sent to us from our Father above. Sent to us from our Father above. Sent to us from our Father above. And they say that his name was Jesus. He come down. He come from the glory. He come down. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come down. He come from the glory. He come down. He come from the glorious kingdom. Oh yes, believe us. Oh yes, believe us. Oh yes, believe us. He come from the glorious kingdom. He come down.
Firing Mr. Mueller or any other of the top brass involved in this investigation would not only call into question this administration's commitment to the truth, but also to our most basic concept, rule of law.
Our new calls from both sides of the aisle in support of Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. Just heard there from the Democratic Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, that's Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. On Friday, 40 former U.S. attorneys and GOP officials sent an open letter to President Trump warning him against firing the special counsel. All this as the Washington Post reports the FBI's deputy director, Andrew McCabe, plans to retire early next year. Trump taking a break from his vacation in Florida to tweet this. How can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 legally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during investigation? FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits, 90 days to go. Wow. FBI lawyer James Baker reassigned, according to Fox News. Well, joining us now, Richard Painter, former chief White House ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush. We'll talk about the pressure being exerted upon Robert Mueller here in just a moment. But let me have you react, Professor Painter, to what I just read there from these tweets. Andrew McCabe certainly under a lot of pressure this week as he sat in front of 3 congressional hearings.
Andrew McCabe is a loyal public servant, and he has served his country well. And for him to be attacked by members of Congress the way he has been attacked over the past few weeks is unconscionable. What's going on here is that McCabe is a witness to the obstruction of justice by President Trump, because McCabe was in communication with James Comey when he was the head of the FBI, and he learned about the obstruction of justice by the president, the attempts by the president to force James Comey to swear loyalty to the president and to obstruct the Russia investigation. This is intimidation of a witness by members of Congress. And now that he is retiring, we see the president taking up the mat on Twitter, as he often does, to continue to harass this man who is not only a loyal public servant, but a material witness in the obstruction of justice case against President Trump. This is shocking behavior on behalf of the president. And I would have to say, in the Bush White House, when I was the ethics lawyer, if any White House staff member had sent out communications similar to those tweets, we would have had them fired immediately. And for the President of the United States to be doing this is a disgrace.
Richard Painter, I alluded to one of 2 letters that were fired off this week in defense of Robert Mueller. You signed one of them, along with some other Republican former members of administrations. Let me just read one quotation from that. It is critical that the special counsel be allowed to complete his review with the full support of DOJ and without interference interference for the benefit of the country as well as for that of the administration. What prompted you and others to write this letter?
Well, I took the lead on that letter and soliciting former members of Congress and other leading officials in Republican administrations, because it's in our common interest, Republican and Democrat alike, to have Robert Mueller continue this investigation and find out who was collaborating with the Russians, who has lied about their contacts with the Russians, and who has obstructed justice. This is not a partisan issue, although Robert Mueller has been a Republican for many years, and he was the FBI director under President Bush and President Obama. But this is a critically important investigation, and the threats to rein in Robert Mueller, to fire him, that we see from the president's allies and Fox News and some members of Congress are very, very worrisome.
You wrote a piece here with Norm Eisen, another former White House ethics lawyer here, looking at the 4 things you're worried about going forward here, including the removal of Bob Mueller. What's the one thing that needs to be done here to ensure that doesn't happen? In other words, what's something that could be done or implemented here that secures Robert Mueller's continuation in this position?
Well, I think that the members of Congress of both parties ought to make it very clear to President Trump that if he does anything to interfere with the Mueller investigation, he is going to immediately be removed from office. And that message needs to come from the Republicans as well as the Democrats. This is not in the interest of the Republican Party to have members of Congress piling on and attacking Mueller and attacking the investigation, attacking Mr. McCabe, and retaliating against witnesses. It's going to be terrible for the Republican Party in the 2018 elections. It's very important for both parties to make it very clear to the president, hands off Robert Mueller.
Does Bob Mueller need to say something about this? He's been silent throughout. We heard from some guests earlier on the program that's wise. It's wise for him to keep quiet as all of this unfolds, let the indictments do the talking. At some point, does he have to defend the integrity of his investigation?
I think he's defending the integrity of the investigation by doing the investigation. We need to have people who are actually doing their jobs in Washington instead of tweeting and talking about it and attacking other people. Robert Mueller is doing his job. He's doing it well, and he's not going to sit there shooting his mouth off or tweeting or anything else. When you hear from him, it's going to be an indictment or something else like that.
Last question here, Richard Painter. You are part of CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, filed suit against this president using the emoluments clause. A judge ruled that you didn't have standing. That case, let me just quote the statement here from CREW. While today's ruling, this was issued Thursday, is a setback, we will not walk away from this serious and ongoing constitutional violation. The Constitution is explicit on these issues, and the president is clearly in violation. Our legal team is weighing its options, and will soon lay out our decisions on how to proceed. Help us understand what's next here. If that judge rules you don't have standing, what needs to happen here when it comes to the president and his properties?
Well, the court in New York felt that CREW, our organization, was not the proper plaintiff to bring a lawsuit such as this one. We're going to appeal that ruling. There are 2 other lawsuits pending, one brought by members of Congress and one brought by the Attorney General of the State of Maryland and the District of Columbia. They have very different standing arguments, and those are in front of other courts. No court has ruled on the substance of the complaint, which is that the president is in violation of the Constitution. And in all 3 suits, the plaintiffs feel very strongly that the president is in violation of a critically important provision of the Constitution, which prohibits any United States government official from accepting profits and benefits from dealings with foreign governments without the consent of Congress. And that's a very, very important provision of the Constitution. And we hope that, we expect that the courts will enforce it, and that also Congress will do its job of enforcing the Constitution, which isn't what's happening so far.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre, Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.